is Mike Loveday with studentsports.com, and I'm here with Thomas Blease from the Blake School in Minnesota. You recently made your college choice, so we're going to talk a little bit about that here in a minute. But first off, kind of talk a little bit about what was the recruiting process, and how did it unfold for you?
The recruiting process for me is confined to roughly 3 months of 24/7 lacrosse every year. I started playing for my summer team, Minnesota Elite, my rising freshman year, and every June through August since then, I lived lacrosse for those 3 specific months. During that period in time, my coaches and I worked to get my name out there, which is fairly important for a recruit coming from Minnesota. And my junior year, I started getting a little bit more attention, and my senior year, when I was finally able to play with my age group, drew attention at multiple tournaments. So that's how it unfolded for me.
Yeah. You said you started to gain more attention kind of starting your junior year. What do you know if there was like a specific difference in the reason you were getting more attention, or was it just the fact that you'd been out there for a couple years, or did coaches kind of let you know what was it about that junior year?
I think I was on the scene for 2 years prior to that, so coaches had seen me for about 2 years before that, so a little bit more familiar with the Minnesota Elite program in our later years because we started winning more games.
Yeah. Did you feel? I know I talked to one of your teammates, Cray, a few weeks ago, and he kind of talked about what it's like being recruited out of Minnesota, and what challenges. You're a couple years ahead of him, so what kind of things did you see, or did you notice any differences between coming out of Minnesota and having to do the recruiting circuit, whereas maybe some of the guys you talked to on the East Coast or places like that?
Well, first thing is playing out east as a player in Minnesota is quite expensive. Traveling out east for tournaments, these big name tournaments, hotbeds, summer kickoff, all these tournaments are, of course, on the East Coast, and travel to there, playing in these tournaments, playing better competition is always more expensive than people who could drive from Connecticut to Delaware and whatnot. Also, coaches like to see high school games for seeing a player play in a pressure situation, and when you give film playing Holy Family from Minnesota or some team that a coach doesn't necessarily know, it's a little bit more difficult to convince them that you have the skill to play at the next level.
Yeah, you're talking about the travel. I see the Minnesota teams at every event I go to, and I've asked a couple of you guys before. It's like those 20-hour bus rides, I'm sure, can be kind of brutal sometimes, especially in the summer.
Yeah, the team gets real tight though. A lot of team bonding.
Yeah, I can imagine one way or the other it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So you talked about the recruiting. So you said it picked up your junior year. So how many schools did you take go on visits for, unofficial visits, before you ended up making your choice?
I visited my junior year, rising junior year. I visited Holy Cross in Colgate, and then this year I visited Boston University, Union College in Hobart.
Yeah. And you ultimately settled on Hobart. So what was it about Hobart that ended up setting them apart from the other schools?
Well, there are three main factors for me. The first was Hobart fits exactly the criteria that I look for in a school. Their student-faculty ratio is 11-to-1, 2,300 kids in the school, and a very individualized approach to education. Second, I'm very excited to receive coaching from Coach Raymond and his handpicked staff of very knowledgeable and experienced coaches. He really made a great impression on me, and I'm very excited to play with him. Lastly, Coach Raymond emphasized the history of Hobart lacrosse and what it means to the people of Geneva and the surrounding towns. And this culture and history of lacrosse excellence is something that I want to become a part of in the future, and that's another reason why I chose Hobart.
Uh-huh. And obviously, going to college, you have any ideas at this point what you want to major in? Because I'm sure that played some sort of factor.
I actually do. So their number one major is economics, and that's something that I'm very interested in the future. So I plan on majoring in economics and possibly having a minor in one of the soft sciences or perhaps environmental sciences.
Okay. And I always like now that your recruiting process is kind of over. I mean, you still got to finish out your high school career and everything and lock that down. But from I'm sure some of the young guys would like to know if there's anything that you learned through the process to kind of pass on to the next group of kids to keep an eye out for whenever they're going through this.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I'd say is just be proactive, talking to your coaches, making sure to communicate. Don't be afraid to give a coach a call. Just being proactive at every point in the recruiting process.
Yeah. Okay. And now I'm gonna, since you're out in Minnesota, I know you guys, Blake School's always one of the teams that's in the running for state title year in year out. So I'm gonna ask you a little bit, what's the team outlook for the upcoming season?
Well, we made our first state appearance in a few years last year, which is very exciting. But next year is what I'm very excited for. The Rock, or what we call our defense, will be solid with Cray Banks, who you did an interview with, committed to Michigan, Eric Hartman, committed to Colby, and myself. So I'm really excited for defense next year. We might get to go ahead to play quite a bit of press defense, which I'm very excited for. We're also returning our starting goalie along with 3 starting attack and our 2 starting face-off middies. So I think we're going to have a really strong year. Coach Clark's done wonderful things with the program. I'm very excited.